Good evening, everyone, especially to you, sir. Tonight, we are going to discuss assessment in the affective domain. Andy Hargreaves said, on assessment, measure what you value instead of valuing what you can measure. It appears to imply that if you need to assess something of value to you, measure only the value you place on it and avoid putting a value on whatever it is if you cannot measure the value of it. For example, if you are planning to purchase a ticket for a Taylor Swift concert for your sister, it would be prudent to obtain a responsible evaluation of the cost of the ticket that you are certain she would like. If you are unable to obtain such an evaluation, do not attempt to assign a monetary value to it. If you love your sister, you want her to be happy, buy a ticket nonetheless and go on. The worth of the ticket, like the value of your love to your sister, cannot be measured, as well as the joy it brings to your sister. I will read the learning objectives first. So, at the end of the chapter, the students should be able to explain the meaning of assessing learning outcomes in the affective domain, discuss soft skills in relation to assessment in the affective domain, and cite the method and tools for assessing learning in the affective domain, and assessment develop assessment tools to measure learning in the affective domain. Affective domain. In the Bloom's taxonomy, three domains of learning were identified: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domains. The cognitive domain includes mental skills, which is um, the knowledge. The affective domain dwells on growth in feelings or emotional areas, feelings, emotions, and attitude. While the psychomotor domain considered with manual or physical activities or physical skills. In short, the three domains of learning are KSA, meaning knowledge, skills, and attitude. Cartwell, Blooms, and Masha in 1973. The, the affective domain includes the manner in which we deal with things emotionally, such as feelings, values, appreciation, enthusiasm, motivations, and attitudes. Affective learning is demonstrated by behaviors indicating attitudes of awareness, interest, attention, concern, and responsibility, ability to listen and to respond in interactions with others, and ability to demonstrate those attitudinal characteristics or values which are appropriate to the task, situation, and the field of study. The affective domain is a part of a system that was published in 1956, identifying, understanding, addressing, and how people learn. We shall concern with the second of these domains, which is the affective domain. The affective domain's learning objectives that emphasize a feeling, tone, and emotion, or a degree, acceptance, or rejection. So, in the previous lesson, we already tackled about Bloom's taxonomy, right? If I'm not mistaken, it was already discussed in the Assessment Learning 1. So, in this chapter, we shall be concerned with the affective domain. And for a balanced education, let us not pay attention only to the development of the minds or cognitive and the hands or physical skills. Let us also give attention to the development of the heart or the affective domain. So, affective domain is being able to react emotionally and feel different kinds of emotions, showing or demonstrating our emotion and being able to feel others' feelings and emotions too.
Navarro and Santos 2013 answered, the affective domain is the less studied and most often overlooked domain in educational literature despite the fact that almost every researcher or authors begins with a premise on the importance of the affective domain in the teaching learning process. In the educational literature, nearly every author introduced their paper by stating that the affective domain is essential if it is important for learning. But it is less studied, most nebulous, and hardest to evaluate of Bloom's three domains. Informal classroom teaching, the majority of the teacher's effort typically go into the cognitive aspect of the teaching and learning, and most of the classroom time is designed for cognitive outcomes. Similarly, evaluating cognitive learning is straightforward, but assessing effective outcomes is difficult. Thus, there is significant value in realizing the potential to increase students' learning by tapping into affective domain. The five key skills of SEL, namely self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making, are in the affective domain, and so are the concern of assessment in the affective domain. The five social emotional learning, the primary goal of the social and emotional learning is to improve students' capacity to establish and maintain healthy relationships through establishing a safe and positive and mutually beneficial environment. First, we have self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to consider and understand your own emotions, thoughts, values, and experience, and how those can influence your actions. Improving your self awareness can allow you more effectively identify your individual strengths and weaknesses. Example for this is be honest with yourself. The next one is relationship skills. Relationship skills competency concern your ability to make positive connections with others as well as your ability to take their emotions into account in different situations and social interaction in order to establish and maintain healthy, mutually rewarding relationship. Example for this is threatening others how you'd like to threaten. And lastly, we have responsible decision making is the ability required to make positive and constructive choices based on individual and social factors like personal and academic goals, ethical standards, safety concern, and social norms. Example is make positive decisions. Soft skills and effective assessment. Learning outcomes in the affective domain include soft skills in contrast to the hard skills, technical skills. Soft skills are non-technical skills that refer to how one works in the workplace, how one interacts with others in the workplace, and how one looks at problems and solve problems. Soft skills are abilities that relate to how you work and interact with other people. Commonly noted soft skills include communication, teamwork, and other interpersonal skills. Soft skills are your personal attributes. They directly relate to how well you can work with. Example for this is problem solving. Employers highly valued people who can resolve issues quickly and effectively. Categories of soft skills. The 5K skills of SEL can be grouped into 4 categories that most school leaders, teachers, and parents would agree are within the responsibility of schools to monitor and develop. These are: first, we have social skills include how a student interact with other students as observed by teacher and other adults. Social skills are the skills we use every day to interact and communicate with others. They include verbal and nonverbal communication. Example is sharing, listening, and effective communication. The next one, we have self-management, refers to self-regulation. The student's ability to take control over what would otherwise be automatic reactions to by planning, focusing attention, reframing experience, and using mental tools. Lack of self-management is manifested when a student blurs out responses which suggest a lack of thoughtfulness. Self-management, also referred to as self-control or self-regulation, is the ability to regulate one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors effectively in different situations. This includes managing stress, delaying gratification, motivating oneself. Example for this is learn to regulate yourself, also taking control of your emotions and actions.
In continuation of categories of soft skills, the third is academic soft skills, are both social and cognitive. Their defining feature is their ancillary role in carrying out traditional academic tasks, the ability to work independently. So sample soft skills include leadership, teamwork, communication, flexibility, and work ethic. Soft skills are not unique to a certain industry or discipline. These skills can be transferred from industry to industry. Fourth is approaches to learning. Includes such things as the student engage in school, pleasure in learning, and anxiety about performance. The approaches to learning domain focuses on how children learn. It refers to the skills and behavior that children use to engage in learning. It incorporates emotional, behavioral, and cognitive self-regulation as well as initiative, curiosity, and creativity. So we have here a table of soft skill and the observable behavior. So the first is social skills. The observable behaviors are provides peers with positive feedback, offers help or assistance to peers, initiates interactions with peers, participates in discussions with peers, and has sense of humor, share amusement with peers, and has friends, can carry out leadership activities and engage in appropriate social behavior. Second is self-management. The observable behavior are controlled displays of temper with anger, accept legitimate rules, compromises with others to avoid conflict, respond in socially appropriate way to criticism from other, handle teasing and social provocations, cooperate with others and maintain attention to tasks, and is respectful to teachers and staff. And the third is academic soft skills. The observable behavior are work independently, is respect to teachers and staff, and work independently completes assigned tasks, listen to and carries out teachers' directions, and produce work of acceptable quality for ability level, and requires materials to school and arrives at school on time and without undue absences. Asked for assistance as needed, ask question, uses appropriate study skills, and lastly is approaches to learning. The observable behavior are enjoy school and takes on challenging tasks, has confidence in abilities, work hard and is enthusiastic and adventurous, is involved with extracurricular school activities, and in relation to assessment, the low level of abstraction and high level of observability of student behaviors like those given in the table have two important practical advantages. The first is that it is easy for teachers and other adults who are regularly around individual students to experience directly what is asked of them to score. Does the child have friends without the requirement for an investment in training? The second is that low scores on a particular items for a particular student or group of students have obvious implications for intervention. For example, students who have low scores on confidence in abilities and willingness to work hard may benefit from growth mindset training. Students who are frequently late in class or absent from school may need counseling and an intervention with parents. Students who have aggressive with peers and quick to anger may benefit from training on how to think about and reframe the action of others before reacting automatically. Administrators and teachers can identify both individual student and classroom that needed additional help. A classroom in which a lot of students are receiving low scores on self-management skills is a classroom in which the teacher needed help in classroom. Teacher must focus on effective instructional strategies.
The taxonomy of educational objectives. The taxonomy in the affective domain contains a large number of objectives. In the literature expressed as interests, attitudes, appreciations, values, and emotional sets or biases, according to Cratwell et al. 1964. The description of each step and the taxonomy called from Cratwell's Taxonomy of Affective Domain 1964 are given as follows. First step is receiving, is being aware of or sensitive to the existence of certain ideas, material, or phenomena and being willing to tolerate them. It refers to the student's willingness to attend to particular phenomena and also focus to attention on particular thing in the environment. So, ang receiving is willingness of student to pay attention, to learn or listen. For example, the learners listen attentively to class discussion. The second step is responding, is being committed in some small measure to the ideas, materials, or phenomena involved by actively responding to them. This refers to the active participation on the part of the student. And ang student mo react voluntarily. For example, learners participated actively in class discussion. The third step is valuing, is willing to be perceived by others as attaching importance to certain ideas, materials, or phenomena. Concerned with the worth or value a student attaches to a particular object's phenomenon or behavior. Also being sensitive to individual and cultural differences This focus on diversity. For example, learners share their views and ideas about various issues raised in class. The fourth step is organization, is relating the value to those already held and bring it into a harmonious and internally consistent philosophy, concerned with bringing together different values, resolving conflicts between them, and beginning the building of an internally consistent value system. The fifth step is characterization. By value or value set is to act consistently in accordance with the values he or she has internalized. So, the individual has a value system that has controlled his or her behavior for a sufficiently long time for him or her to develop a characteristic lifestyle. Here are the 6 levels of educational objectives in the affective domain with examples are given below. So first level is receiving, being aware of or attending to something in the environment. For example, individual would read book passage about civil rights. The second level is responding, showing some new behaviors as a result of experience. For example, individual would answer questions about the book, read or other book by the same author, another book about civil rights, etc. The third level is valuing, showing some defined involvement or commitment. For example, the individual might demonstrate this by voluntarily attending a lecture on civil rights. The fourth level is organization, integrating a new value into one's general set of values, giving it some ranking among one's general priorities. For example, the individual might arrange a civil rally. And the last is characterization by value, acting consistently with the new value. For example, the individual is firmly committed to the value, perhaps becoming a civil rights leader. Teachers usually find difficulty in the use of behavioral terms when they formulate learning outcomes in the affective domain. Below are examples of verb or behavioral terms that can be used to state learning competencies in the affective domain. Receiving, accept, attend, develop, recognize. Responding, complete, comply, cooperate, discuss, examine, obey, and respond. Valuing, accept, defend, devote, pursue, and seek. Organization, codify, discriminate, display, order, organize, systematize, and weight. Characterization, internalize, and verify.
Methods of assessing learning in the affective domain, change in attitude, values, and habits is the end result of effective teaching learning in the affective domain. Change in attitude is manifested in our change of beliefs, feelings, aspirations, and attitudes towards something or someone. These changes in our beliefs and values in turn have an impact on our level of motivation and concept of self-efficacy. This assessment method offers useful data regarding student learning. This informs us of the lessons learned by the learners, their level of understanding, and their areas of difficulty. Learning is incredibly individualized as seen by the actions that reveal attitudes of interest, attention, worry, and responsibility. Assessing your learner's affective domain will help you understand their behavior. Affective learning is demonstrated by behaviors that indicates attitudes of awareness, interest, attention, concern, and responsibility, and the ability to listen and respond in interactions with others, and the ability to demonstrate those attitudinal characteristics or values that are appropriate to the test situation. You will be able to deal with them because their attitude frequently affects their actions. This will also aid in the planning of the activities you should create to assess children from their values. If ang behavior sa imong learners nag-change from negative to positive, that means na ang imong method na gigamit is successful or effective. So what are these methods? These are teacher observation, student self-report, and peer rating. Thus, a popular method of assessing learning in the affective domain is observation. Observation is the act of looking out for and recording the presence or absence of verbal and non-verbal behaviors of a person or group of persons in natural or simulated setting in order to make valid inference on the individual observed. Macmillan 2007 gives three feasible methods of assessing learning or learners' development in the affective domain. The first in the list is teacher observation. Teacher observation can be unstructured or structured. It is unstructured when observation is open-ended. Teacher's observation is not limited to item in a checklist or rating scale. Teacher observation is the activity of sitting in on another teacher's class to observe, learn, and reflect. When teaching is observed in a classroom or other learning environment, it can be done formally or informally. They're often used to provide teachers with constructive, critical feedback aimed at improving their classroom management and instructional techniques. There are two types of teacher observation. The first one is unstructured observation. It is chosen and arranged consciously. And the second one is unstructured observation, and it is one where the observations are not planned. This method works best when analyzing a single instance. To make teacher observation work in relation to the assessment of affective learning, the following should be observed. Determine behaviors to be observed in advance. Record students' important data such as time, data, and place. If unstructured, record brief description of relevant behavior. Keep interpretation separate from description. Record both positive and negative behaviors. Have as much observation of each student as necessary. Avoid personal bias. Be objective. Immediately record the observations and apply a simple and efficient procedure. The next methods of assessing learning in the affective domain is student self-report. A student self-report requires the student to provide an account of his or her attitude or feelings toward a concept or idea or people. A self-report is also referred to as written reflection. A teacher may require a student to write his thoughts on topics like why I like or dislike physics, or why I like or dislike coming to school. The best and easiest way to assess these affective measures is to use self-report. Ask students to report their degree of agreement with statements using a Likert scale or any approaches that involves asking a participant about their feelings, attitudes, opinions, and etc. A student self-report can also be derived by a way of a student interview or by way of a questionnaire and survey. Another means to derive a student self-report is by way of a survey or a questionnaire. This survey and questionnaire can make use of a constructed response format like an essay. Interviews and questionnaires are two examples of self-reports. Self-reports are frequently used to collect participant responses in observational studies and experiments. Self-report techniques describes methods of gathering data where participants provide information about themselves without interference from the experimenter. Such techniques can include questionnaires, interviews, or even diaries, and ultimately will require giving responses to preset questions.
For the continuation of the student self-report. So student self-report is like when we have a student interview or student survey and questionnaire. So students interview, it is an opportunity where teachers had direct involvement with the student. So na siya direct involvement with the student. This is the where teachers can probe and respond for a better understanding. This is the time where teachers had interview with the student. So naa siya direct involvement. Another means to derive a student self-report is by way of survey and a questionnaire. Actually, there are two types of a survey and a questionnaire. First, a constructive response, and then second, this a selective response. Constructive response, it is a straightforward approach asking students about their effect about responding to simple statement of question or in a format like say, while the selective response uh, in which students can choose from option, and this assures anonymity. So remember, see constructive response, it is straightforward approach kay students. Then si selective response, it is morning ang estudyante mo mupili sa response sama sa multiple choice. So that's all for student self-report. The next, pair ratings. So how else may a teacher know if a student is realizing an intended learning outcome? Saan pagkabalo ni teacher kung na-achieve ba gyud sa student ang iyang learning outcomes sa affective domains? Nga dili si teacher ang mo'y mag-assess. So, kay ang pair ratings man good, it is a less methods in assessing affect because students may not take this seriously. So dili man gyud ni i-take seriously sa students because however, a teacher can accurately observe what is being assessed in pair ratings since the teacher also engaged with the students. So, sa pair ratings, mo niyang estudyante ginaas sa teacher in rating their peer or classmate. So, sometimes man good, dunay bias because I can see dunay bias because kung ang peer man good or example friend na niya, syempre hatagan yun na niya og a good ratings, but kung dili siya ganahan na nga person, tagaan na niya og bad grade. So for that, si teacher doon na siya mabuhat nga um, strategy para ma-check yun niya kung if it is accurate or not. No? So, mabuhat na ni teacher, it is by way of observation. So, this is pair ratings. Next, the different methods of assessing learning of development in active or development in affective domain, namely observation, student self-report, pair ratings, um, make use of assessment tools. So, kani sila nag-make use ni sila sa assessment tools such as Likert scale, semantic differential, checklist, then sentence completion, and students' written reflection. So, kani si affective, si Ang mga different methods sa pag-assess sa learning na sila ay affective assessment tools. First, a Likert skill. So, ang Likert skill, mo ni siyang example sa rating skill. It make use of 5 point scale from strongly disagree, disagree, undecided, agree, and to strongly agree. So the following is a Likert scale used to assess students' attitude toward teaching as a profession to determine each student's attitude toward teaching after a lesson in teaching as a profession. So I have here and here is a legend as what I have mentioned before. First, strongly agree, agree. So here we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's up to you, to the student or to the teacher on how to rate because kaning Likert skill magud usahay ginagamit ni siya in assessing a teacher. So this is how Likert skill looks like. So i-check lang na nimo anang items kung unsa imong i-rate 5, 4, 3 or 2 or 1 ba siya. The next is sentence completion. So, sentence completion, as the name implies, the student is asked to complete a given incomplete sentence. So, gina-ask si students nga kumpletohon niya ang incomplete nga sentence. It captures whatever comes to mind from each student. So, kumpletohon lang nimo ang sentence. Like example, here. This is some of the themes that can serve as scaffolding to help students get started in for sentence completion. So, first, in my opinion, I assume for my point of view, if you ask me, as far as I can tell, to my mind, the way I see things is that it seems to me that I believe I would say so mo ni siya ang mga sentence nga dili siya complete na si student lang ang mag-complete. It's up to the students kung whatever comes up to their mind para ma-complete ang usa ka sentence.
Okay, next, let's have semantic differential. Let's have a brief history about semantic differential. So, semantic differential, or the SD, was introduced and mainly developed by the US psychologist Charles E. Osgood in the year 1916 to 1991. It is a type of semantic rating scale measuring the cognitive meaning of concepts like terms, objects, events, activities, ideas, and etc. Also, it captures the affective and cognitive components of respondents' attribution selected concepts on a multidimensional level. Different from other rating skills, the SD is universally applicable. It measures associations, motivations, emotions, attitude, and etc. for almost every concept. So the original SD questionnaires contain a list of 7 skills. So it is -3, -2, -1, 0, +3, +2, and +1. So muna siya ang mga rating skill nga naa na ibutang nato sa ibabaw sa atong table between bipolar. Constructing adjectives is a good or bad, light or dark, social or unsocial, and a neutral 0 point. So kaning good, bad, light, dark, social, and social, it is an opposite. So ibutang nimo sa imong table sa ibabaw ang rating skill kato -3, -2, -1, and so on. And then sa ubos mabutang ka table sa left good, sa right bad. So mapili ka sa good and bad. Kung napili nimo is good, so i-rate nimo ang good. Unsa siya ka good? It is negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, positive 3, positive 2, or positive 1. So, i-rate mo siya. So, mag-choose ka between good and bad. Sa opposite sila. No? So, opposite ang naa sa butang sa table. So, it is about feelings, emotions, kasagara ang ginarate. Ani. So, next. Example. A student is asked to assist his science class as a whole by way of a semantic differential skill as shown below. The skills are pairs of adjectives on feelings or beliefs that are opposite. So, kabaliktaran sa mga feelings or beliefs ang nakakabutang sa table ng example nato. So, this is example direction. Which item is true of your math class? Check the item that applies to you. Mark X the item that does not apply to you. So, ipot daw nimo checkan nimo kung kani siya nga item, muni siya ang na-feel nimo, ani na-apply nimo sa imong kaugalingon. And then X kung wala. For example, ang rating skill nga iyang gigamit diri is 2, 1, 0, negative 1, and then negative 2. So, pwede ra ka na ang gamiton. But gani discuss lang nako kung unsa ang original jud. So, it depends to the teacher na. No? So, diri gibutan diri exciting, napa-exciting and boring. So, nag-choose siya, either mo choose ko example is exciting. So, i-rate na ko unsa siya ka-excite, no? Unsa siya ka-excite ang math class. So, 2. So, i-check na ko sa 2. So, inana. Next, fulfilling or frustrating ba ang math class? Then, demanding or essay. I-check lang nimo, i-rate lang yun nimo. Choose ka between the two, and then i-check nimo, i-rate nimo kung asaan ang mga rating skill sila i-rate nimo na belong, no? Unsa siya ka-effective, unsa siya na-apply para sa imuha. So, inana ang semantic differential. So, kanang nasabtan ba, class? Okay, so let's us proceed. Natay mga advantages and disadvantages sa semantic differential. First is the advantages. Advantages number 1. Easy to understand the skill and rate correctly, and its popularity makes it very familiar with responders. This makes information collected very reliable. 2. Versatility of semantic differential skill type questions. They have been successfully used in customer satisfaction surveys to scientific behavioral analysis surveys. Next, disadvantages. Given that we use range, there is no one correct answer, which makes it difficult to identify the knowledge level of the responder. So, some preparatory questions to categorize the responder into knowledge level is recommended. Number 2, identify the correct number of points on the scale can be tricky and highly dependent on the question's type. Just remember that too few points on the scale means you may not capture the emotional range felt by the responder, while too many points might seek information that is not there. And then lastly, another pro tip, an odd-numbered scale allows for a neutral answers, while an even number scale requires the responder to be on one side of the other of the scale. So, muto siya ang advantages and disadvantage sa semantic differential. So, now let us proceed to the next. This is common kaayo sa atuan ning ang sunod. So, this is the checklist. A checklist is a list of all the things that you need to do, information that you want to find out, or things that you need to take somewhere, which you make in order to ensure that you do not forget anything. In a checklist, as the name implies, the student simply check an item that is observed or present or possessed or that applies to him or her. A student is asked to evaluate the extent to which he or she possesses a growth mindset. So, the best example in checklist is our to-do list that a person responsible has to run through before delivering work. It serves both as a way to keep track of what needs to be done, unsa kinahanglan nato mahuman, and will ensures that the work completion quality is according to requirement. So to-do list The to-do list dito nato ginabuta kung unsay angay nato, unsay atong mga buluhaton. So nagsulat ta. Unsa ba angay nato pambuhaton gisulat nato. And then ato siyang magbuhat ta og time management, di ba? Kibali ang checklist nakabuhat ta daani og time management para mahuman nato atong mga buluhaton. So, example, nakasulat nimo dito sa EDOC 6, mag-video may reporting. So, kung humana ka adto, i-check nito nimo. Proceed sad ka sa next nga nakabutang sa imong to-do list. So, kabalo ko nga common kini sa ato karon, especially na jud no nga daghan jud kaayo tag mga buhatonon karon. Dili jud na nato ika-deny. Daghan jud kaayo, but again ni sulod man ta ani, so mo survive ta and then fight lang jud ta, laban lang jud. So, importante jud part na jud kini sa ato ang to-do list nato din, no? Dinhi na jud ta makabuhat itag time management ani, and then makabalo pud ta kung unsa pay wala nato nabuhat ug unsa pa bay angay nato nabuhat, unsa bay nangahuman nato, no? So inana ka importante ang checklist. So napud sa elementary, no, mag-teach tag elementary, so i-table man na nato siya, ibutang nato siya sa table. And then ay mga questions dito, kung example, do you have a dog in your house? So check yes if naa, and check no o wala. So inana kibali siya ang checklist. Sunod, so let's have an example. Direction: check the item which applies to you. So naitay table diri, nabahin siya into 3. So the first one is the sentences nga mo natong identify, and the next table is for the yes na nga table, and the next is the for no. So number 1, I believe that intelligence can be developed. So imo nga identify sa imong self, imo i-read and analyze, i-comprehend kung tinuod ba para sa imuha, tinuod ba nga ang atong kahibalo ma-develop pa ba. So i-check nimo siya kung yes, and kung dili na, no. Next, I do not easily give up. So, i-check nimo kung tinuod ba nang dili jud ka easily ka give up, and then no kung easily jud ka, kung dali ra ka give up. So, padayunon lang nimo diha kung unsay naa ka sulat diha, padayunon nimo siya, read and comprehend kung unsa ang naa diha. Ayaw ibasta-basta i-check lang, no? Be honest, no? Pinana siya, so inana ra ka simple ang checklist, pero kinahanglan pud nato siya sabton o i-check kung unsa jud ang tinuod, kung unsa jud ang angay. So inana siya when it comes to elementary. Sa elementary, i-guide pa man nato tong mga students kay sometimes naa jud mga slow learners. So kinahanglan jud og giya natong mga teachers. So that is the example of checklist. So let's have the advantages and disadvantages of checklist. So the advantages: everyone forget things and makes mistakes. Checklist help us to remember what we need to do. You can follow a checklist serially, which helps you complete what needs to be done. And the next, you can adapt the list to your own circumstances and psychology. Number 4, a quick checklist helps you to be specific. And then lastly, checklist makes it easy to delegate tasks. Disadvantages: some people find long checklists demotivating or distracting. Muna siya ang disadvantage. Number 2, a checklist can lull you into a false sense of security and prevent you seeing the big picture, asking why, or thinking about the causes of problems. Checklists have headings but otherwise do not specify the dependencies between the items on the list, so failing to define the order in which the items need to be carried out and risking things being done out of order. Checklists are a prime target for artificial intelligence, so reliance on them exposes you to the risk of redundancy. And then lastly, checklists didn't tell you whether the organization will achieve its goals. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of checklist. So let us proceed to the next one. So the next is the student's written reflection. So, in using this measurement tool, the teacher asks the students, for example, to write their personal thoughts and feelings on a subject or topic given by the teacher. Like, for example, why I like or dislike mathematics. A reflection paper allows students to take a personal approach and express their thoughts for the given topic. So, sa students reflection, you have freedom to to take or to express their thoughts sa gihatag nga topics, to express their thoughts and feelings sa gihatag nga topics. So it is your self-reflection. After the discussion, mo reflect ka kung sa imong na-learn, ibutan nimo dito sa imong na-learn. And sometimes students will summarize nimo ko ang discussion, gi-summarize nimo siya na inana ang students sa pagbuhat. And then napo iban di-reflect nila, magkuha lang sila og isa ka sentences or isa ka word, and then gin-expand nila and then reflect their real life situation. So inana nga mga students sa pagbuhat sa students reflection. So di ba different lahi-lahi jud, but it depends na jud sa imo man ang freedom nga mohatag ka og reflection sa given nga topic. Yes, ani why I like or dislike mathematics. So mohatag ka nganong ganahan nimo mathematics, ngano pud or ngano di nimo ganahan ang mathematics. So express nimo kung ngano, unsay rason, di ba? So inana siya i-reflect nimo. Example last activity, the quiz 5 activity about the portfolio assessment. Gipabuhat dito gipabuhat ni sir about mag-reflect ta on unsa to na realize, no? Gitagaan ta ni sir og sentence completion, di ba? Gitagaan ta ni sentence completion nga katong I realized that blah 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 blah. So kita na magsumpay. So kung maglisod og construct ang students, so ang sentence completion makatabang din sa student written reflection. So nandito di ba, in my opinion, assessment is I realize, and for my own point of view. So kato siya ang sentence completion, makatabang din sa students written reflection sa mga students sa pag-construct kung unsa ilang isugod sa ilahang reflection, no? So para madali lang sila, dili na magsakit ilang ulo na unsaon man nako, no? So di ba inana bisag reflection na maglisod pa nandiyo po na sa ato karon. Reflection na gani siya for ato na siyang kaugalingon nga thoughts and feelings, pero sometimes galisod pa jud ta. So again, dili to pwede maglisod kay reflection allow student to take personal approach and express their thoughts for the given topic. So inana ang students written reflection. So next, the key takeaways of this topic nga among gibuhat karon, the assessment in the affective domain. So learning in the affective domain has something to do with development of favorable attitudes and values, which are difficult to measure. Developing and assessing soft skills or the non-technical skills is in the affective domain of learning and assessing. 3. The methods used to measure learning or developing in the affective domain are teacher observation, student self-report, and peer rating. These methods employ tools such as checklist, rating skill, Likert skill, and semantic difference skill, sentence completion, and student written reflection. So, mo siya among topic karon gabi. So, that would be all for our topic in this evening. And we have our leader, Rizal Bernados, secretary, yours truly, Hazelmiti Akiman, and then members, Mizal A. Binyag, Angelica Laginlay, Searchly Baguhin, Roblin Habinyao, and Jessica Paderna. So, that will be all. Thank you, and good evening, and keep safe, everyone.